Alright guys, we're back at the 7830 and we got the new coupler right here. I didn't have one in Portland, had to come clear from Milan. Well, he told me, that kid told me that it was, he told me it come from Milan. It says right there, from Portland, RDC, a division of Deere and Company. I think somebody's full of shit. There it is. We'll put her together. Man, the flies are bad out here. You know what I'm doing? I've got that thing inside out. Oh, sometimes warm, sometimes. What is the matter with your brain? Gotta go like that. Ding. Gonna be pretty hard to get the drive line in like that. Sometimes I wonder what could possibly be going through my head. Ow. Finger pincher. I don't know if I'm in the right hole or not. I don't think I am, actually. No, I think I might be onto something here. All right. I got a 6410 after this. A 6410 if the hitch won't raise up or lower down on here to go to after this. Don't know if I'm going to video that one or not. The gal that was their parts runner, she went over to go get this, and so I went over. They had a R450 John Deere swather that there's a return block on the piston pumps for the propel on it, and those John Deere swathers, they like using quick connect fittings on all the hydraulic blocks on those return blocks. The aluminum block will get worn out, and one of the retainer rings on that quick connect kept blowing the hose off of it. And what happens is, especially on that one, a little part of the recess where that ring sets in the block will actually stay on the hose, and it'll pull the aluminum out of the block, and then that ring will stay on the hose, and it'll just keep popping out and won't stay in there anymore. So we went over there and changed that out for them, and it was just perfect timing. I just got done and she showed up with this. Hey guys, so since the wind was blowing and made the audio terrible, I figured I'd just do a voiceover here. So we'll just tell you a little bit of story about a recent project that I did that I didn't video. And I had you guys remember the 1650K case dozer that I went out in the dark and years ago, and I think it was, I can't remember, it was down there by that Paradise Fire or something down there in Central California. Anyway, the same guy, he was up on the, what they call the Blue River Reservoir fire up here in
It's up by Eugene off of Highway, what is that, 126. It follows the McKenzie River, and then you follow the McKenzie River, and then it'll run into Blue River, Oregon. And there's a couple this big reservoir was built up there in the 60s. The Army Corps of Engineers built it. It's just a huge reservoir. It's absolutely beautiful up there. But anyway, he called me and said that he had lost first gear and he had second and third. And he said I could do without third and have first and second and be fine. He said, but I can't push the dirt and do the fire line that I need to do in second gear. I need first gear. So I was so busy. I was really trying to avoid it, to be honest with you, because I was so far behind and everybody's on my butt and there's just not enough of me to go around. I can't seem to do enough quick enough for people. I can't work enough hours. Anyway, I finally, said, after numerous phone calls from him, I finally decided, okay, I'll go help you out, because nobody would help him, I guess. I guess what he was telling me, that he said nobody wanted to work on case dozers. All they knew was John Deere and Cat. That's what he was telling me. To me, it didn't matter. Nuts and bolts are nuts and bolts on any machine. I don't see what make or model makes any difference. But anyhow, so I jumped in my truck. It's about a 4-hour drive from here, and I drove. They didn't want me there till 2 o'clock in the afternoon that first day, because something with the fire line. So I got up there and I met the guy that was helping him, and real nice guy. His name was Dan. Real knowledgeable guy too. Pretty good mechanically inclined as well. And so I got up there and he took me up to the Dozer. We didn't get up to the Dozer. I mean, I got there at 2 o'clock when I was supposed to be there, and by the time we waited and got approval to get up there to the cat, to the Dozer, they had a bunch of feller bunchers in the road. You see that more than, years ago on the fire line business, you used to not see very much logging equipment. But now you see most of these fires, that's what you see is feller bunchers or excavators with masticator heads on them, skidders. I mean, which makes more sense anyway. But anyways, we waited for all the bunchers and stuff that were in the road to get out of our way, and we finally got up to the Dozer around 5 p.m. And I pulled up to it, and the one guy was wanting to just, those K1650Ks, you can pull 2 pins, and you can take a cab jack, and the cab will jack up and tilt sideways, and you can work on. He said, why don't you jack up the cab? And I said, well, why would I jack up the cab when I'm going to go to the solenoids? And he said, well, what are you thinking? I said, well, if it's shifting, there's some Vickers directional control valves down there, and one's going to be forward, neutral, and reverse, and the other one's going to be first, second, and third. And the way it works is the one coil is going to have a coil on each end. The one valve will have a coil on each end for first and third. And when you're energized the one coil for first, it's going to pull the spool over to first. And when you do third, it's going to do the same thing. And when both coils are de-energized, the springs on each end of those spools are going to center the main spool in the valve, and that's going to be second gear. So I thought, well, from what they were telling me, it was upshifting and downshifting and second and third. But they said it actually shifted into first, but he said you could feel it. It's not first, it's second. So I told him, I said, well, I'm not even going to, I looked at the wiring schematic on the service manual, and I could tell that there was only one wire, and there was 2 wires going into the control module, an input and an output for upshift and downshift. And I said, well, obviously the wires going into the input side of that are fine, and the buttons are fine, because it's upshifting and downshifting in the gears that you have. I said, so I'm not even going to mess around with anything on top. I said, I'm going to pull the belly pan. And so it's either the wires going to the coil, or my suspicion is the belly pan is completely full of crap, and it's rotted. It's probably got the wires rotted out or something at the coil. So anyways, got the belly pans off, and I knew we were in trouble when I pulled those belly pans off. Those belly pans on them case dozers are not near as heavy duty as a cat belly pan. They might be 3/8 plate, something like that, but they were bent, and he'd hit stumps with them. And I knew when I pulled them off, they sprung like a son of a gun, man. I said, we're going to have a hell of a time getting them back on. And so anyway, I got them off, and sure as hell, there was about 500 pounds of crap and water and mud and dirt in the belly pans. And right there, Case put them directional valves right there on the bottom, on the left rear portion of the transmission, almost back by the left rear final. So anyways, got it off, got it all cleaned out, and it was starting to get dark. Then we're working in the dark, right, up in the mountains. We were 9 miles in off the pavement. And anyway, I couldn't get the coil. Most of the time you can take those coils and take the nut loose on it, and you can slide the actual coil off the shaft of the cartridge valve. And I couldn't get it to slide off. I couldn't get it to do anything because that wet dirt had sat around there and rusted the interior of that metal part of the coil where it slides over the cartridge valve, and it had rusted it to the shaft. And we kind of screwed it up trying to get it off. Broke the electrical connection going into it. Anyway, that style of valve on those cases, the way they've got them, is the electrical connection, there's a power and a ground for each side, for each coil, and the two little nubs that stick up, which are the electrical contacts, the electrical connector, you have to take one coil off, because the way they're made is those electrical contacts, they sandwich together with the coil when you put the two coils together. Well, one coil has to come off so you can slide it off the nubs on the other end. Don't know if that makes any sense. Anyways, finally we wound up pulling the valve out of the machine, and we got them all disassembled without tearing any more stuff up. And it was a long night. We had a heck of a time trying to. I mean, it took us a while to get the belly pans and everything cleaned out, and then get the one coil we finally got off with it in the machine. Then we finally decided, let's get the damn thing out of there and get it in the vise where we can see it and work with it. So anyways, we thought we had got it all figured out, and to be completely honest with you, I was on the way down the mountain, because what had happened is that was about 10:30 at night when we got the coils all straightened out, and we were going to test it. Well, we got in the Dozer and went to start it, and it just grinded when you hit the key. And so I ended up pulling the starter out of it that night, and all the teeth were gone on the pinion gear on the starter. And so, and they knew this problem happened because Dan had went into Eugene and got another starter made from the starter shop. But the pinion teeth, for one thing, the gear was too big on the starter that he had rebuilt, and then there was the wrong teeth count. And I said, that's not going to work. It'll never work. So we decided that I was going to stay the night and go down into fire camp and stay at their trailer. And so I went down to fire camp and stayed at their trailer. But on the way down the mountain, I was thinking, because what I did, I wasn't 100% certain what valve was doing what. I had figured out which the first was, but I was under the impression at first that maybe one of them other coils over there was third or something. And what I did is I took a coil off that other directional control valve. But once I was going down the mountain, I was thinking about it. I was like, that's not going to work what you just did there. And I told those guys when we got down to the trailer, I said, we got to reassess things when we go up in the daylight tomorrow. And I said, while you're in town getting that starter figured out, I said, I got to pull that valve back off of there. And I said, that one valve is forward, neutral, and reverse, and it's going to work the same way first, second, and third does. I said, so when you're in forward, obviously that coil is going to be energized, and when you're in reverse, that coil is going to be energized. And when both those coils are de-energized, it's going to center the spool to neutral. And I said, so I'm all mixed up here. I said, we're not going to have forward or reverse, one of the two, whatever coil I robbed off of there. I said, I got to take the coil off the top on that other valve and move it to the bottom, and the coil that I took off that other one and put it back on that one. So anyways, we get down to the camp trailer, and I'm following these guys. I hadn't even been in here. And some little Forest Service dickwad comes walking up to me in the dark and says, "You can't park here." And we pulled up to the wash. There's a hand washing station there that they make you wash up before you go in there and get your food. And I said, I tried to be polite to the kid. I said, "I'm just following these guys. I don't really know where I'm going." I said, "They pulled in here." I said, "We're just going to wash our hands and we're going down to the trailer." And, "Well, you can't park here." And before I was about ready to just grab the little bastard by his throat and choke him till his eyes popped out. But Dan came around the corner, said, "Just calm down. We're gonna wash our hands and we're going down the trailer. It'll be fine." Anyway, so went back up the next morning and I got the valve swapped around, and I'm glad I decided to do that because the one part in the cartridge valve, the little spool in there, one of those was kind of hanging up, and I took a Bench Buddy. I've got some Bench Buddy bore brushes, and I took it in there, and I just kept going back and forth, and I finally got that spool to where it would just slide in there real easily, even with this gravity, and that's what I like to see. I like to take a spool when they're working right in a bore, and you should be able to turn that valve upside down, and that valve should, you shouldn't just be sloppy, but it should slide out of there in your hands with gravity, and you should do the same thing when you rock it back up. Well, I mean, you had to pull this out with a pair of pliers. I mean, it was, and I'm a fair amount of force. Anyway, I didn't like that, so I polished that bore up in that valve really good and got that spool freed up, and I took the coil that was up on third, which would be on the top of that directional control valve. I moved it down to the bottom, and the one that I had robbed off the other directional control valve, which was forward neutral reverse, I put it back where it was. And Dan was pretty handy. I didn't bring my solder and stuff with me, and the one electrical connector that was screwed up, he actually just kind of soldered some wires together, and we just made our own electrical connector for it. So, anyways, he was pretty handy with that stuff. And he had eventually got back from Eugene, and he went to an outfit called Jake's Starter and Automotive Shop or something there in Eugene. And the old guy was pretty handy because he took like 3 different starters and made one starter out of it. And the other thing that was really kind of odd. So that's in those 1650K dozers, they've got a 5.9 Cummins in them with an injection pump. But the thing is that you can't just take a starter out of a pickup or anything with a 12 valve, because most of the starters in the automotive portion of 12 valve Cummins is going to be 12 volt, and that's 24 volt because it's on a dozer. And the other thing is that's a case, which is kind of confusing to me, because that bell housing on that, flywheel housing on that, it's got a torque converter. I'm pretty certain it does. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't been into one of those, but I thought it would be a dry housing if it had a converter, but maybe it doesn't have a converter. I'm not certain. I haven't been into the transmissions on one of those, but anyway, he had taken like 3 different starters and made one, and he had made it a wet starter because that's what came out of it, was a wet starter. Although when I pulled it out, it was dry as a bone. There was no oil on it at all. But he made it a wet starter like the other one was, and then he took the back part of that starter had a big ground stud on it, which most 12 valve Cummins starters don't have that. And so he took the back end off our old starter and put on that starter, and then he found the right pinion for it, and he built a starter. And anyways, Dan showed back up there around, I don't know, probably noon. Yeah, it might have been 11 o'clock, noon. And with the starter, and we got it on there and got it fired up, and drove the thing around. And yeah, they had first and second, but no third, which is fine with them. And that he had a pretty good deal going there, old Ed did, because he'd been on that fire for 52 days straight with that dozer. And he said, if you get me going again, he says, they're going to keep me on till the snow flies. So anyway, we drove it around, test drove it around before we put the belly pans back on, and I'm telling you what, it was me, Ed, Dan, and there was another gal, I can't remember what her name is. She was there helping Ed, and between the four, it took four of us. I mean, we had jacks, we had just bending them, trying to get them, because I mean, they were sprung so bad to where it wasn't just like a quarter bolt hold off, it was like 2 bolt holes off. That's how bad they were. I was almost, one of those was so bad, it was a 3-section belly pan, and one of those was so bad, I was about ready to just pull it back out of there and take the rosebud and just heat that sucker up, cherry red all through the center of it, and drive right over the center of it with the dozer and try to straighten it out. I mean, that's almost to where I was at. I could not get the bolts in it. And at one time I was even, because he was on a pretty good time constraint, because the Forest Service, you know, they give you 24 hours to get those dozers going again, and if you don't get them going, they kick you off the fire and they get somebody else in there. Well, he was getting close to being kicked off, and they, you know, he had to get up there and get going. And I told Ed, I said, if we don't get it here pretty soon, I said, you know what I'm going to do? He said, what's that? And I says, I'm going to push it up to where it touches the bottom of the frame there, and I says, I'm going to weld the bastard on there. And I said, we can cut it off if we need to later, and then we'll straighten them out this winter. But anyway, we finally got jacks up underneath it, pushing on it, and we got jacks up against the track frame and pushing sideways on it and bending it to finally get the bolts started in it. So it was quite an adventure. I made pretty good money for 2 days. I still haven't got paid yet, but but anyway, I thought you'd like to hear that story. That'd have been a good story to tell you, since the wind was blowing like a son of a gun and nobody could hear what I was saying on this video anyway.
Okay guys, well, now that we've got the exhaust on, I think I could start it actually and just make sure everything's going to be alright. I think so. I'm not forgetting anything. And here comes the wind. Drive, we want it in 2-wheel drive. I think I can put this other stuff on first, so we're not going to put the driveline shield back on it. It is screwed up. That's the first time one of these has gone out on these guys. He was asking me questions about it. How come those go out? The rubber just gets old and rotten. It's like a tire. It's like an old weather-checked rotten tire. Babysitting an R450 swather this morning for quite a while. Cutting some really, oh, I think I already told you that. I already did. Losing my mind here. I haven't been called by him, so I guess it's a good thing. make sure before we do that. Okay, yeah. Missing a washer. I'm missing one of these flat washers. It was gone already, so what I'm gonna do is maybe take this one out up here, because this is a dead line. There goes the washer. And put it on here. Right. We're gaining. I want to make it to 6410. I got a log truck at home. It's got lighting issues and stuff. I got part of one fixed yesterday. Didn't complete it. Ratchet, get this one on top. And I think we'll be done with this side here. Move on to the everything on the bottom. Did I put the cart before the horse on that deal? And I did, didn't I? Oh shoot, I see what happened. Supposed to I'm gonna have to redo that. That's all right. Let's get this one tightened up. There's a little slot in it. Lever there, and it's got to ride on that. Gotta get that right. That should be like that. Okay, that makes way more sense. All right. So the next step in this process is put that shield back on the bottom. I don't think I took anything off on this other side to access anything. No, I didn't take nothing off. This thing here was already screwed up and off, and I got that bolt back in there and just put that back kind of where it was, I guess, right in there somewhere. That thing's all screwed up anyhow. We'll put the shield on it and then we'll give her a test drive and the drive line. Yeah, and I know you guys will probably say I'm a conspiracy, but everything I've said has pretty much come true. I told you they were going to collapse the economy, which they're, look at the Dow. The NASDAQ dropped 1,000 points the other day, more than any time in history. I mean, I keep telling these people and they just keep denying it. It's like, you know, somebody's actually trying to help you prepare yourself for what's coming down the line here, and you just don't want to hear it. Whatever, man. People wonder where I get a lot of my information at. I subscribe to a thing called Veterans Today. It's called Veteran Foreign Policy now. They changed the name. I watch a lot of programs. I like to listen to Colonel McGregor and Colonel Wilkerson, Judge Napolitano. Guys like that, I listen to quite a bit. There's a website that I go to called the Unz Review, Ron Unz, and there's a lot of good editors and bloggers on that. They have a whole lot of good, authentic information instead of all the lies that you get from everything else, it seems like. That's what they are, they're just lies. The media, the mainstream media establishment, I don't care whether it's Fox News or any of them, they're all owned by the same people. And a lot of that stuff that you think is right wing, it's not even right wing, it's just as left as any of it all is. And I know somebody will make some snide comments on my channel there, but you know what, anytime you want to have an actual debate on it, let me know. I'll be happy to do that with you anytime. You get to argue with these people that don't do any research. These are the kind of people that go home and watch football, you know, bread and circuses. That's what it is, it's bread and circus. Or they go home and watch some sitcom on TV and rot their brain out even more than it already is. 10mm, let's see, 13. People, the entire world is collapsing around us right now, and you know, did you see what happened at the Olympics? This guy won the gold. I don't give two shits. I'm trying to make a living and feed my family. There was a little spacer. I think I screwed up there. I think I need to put, yeah, that spacer's got to go. The washer goes there, if I remember correctly. Spacer, I might be wrong. Yeah, something like that. Alright, we can put the drive line back in it now. And that drive line, now that the tractor runs, we can start it and put it in two-wheel drive and put this thing right where we want it. And then pop it in the yoke. Put this here somewhere. See if I can get close. I could probably put the caps back on here though. Where are those caps? must already have it out somewhere. Either I left it over there at that swather. Guys, well, I'm pretty much done with this. I'm gonna pick up all this rubber that's on the ground here and lay in a pile, and they said they could pick that up. So the driveline shield there too. It can go in the garbage as well. So, well, alright guys, well, we'll see how many people unsubscribe because they hate Christians. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys.